in part one, you're talking with your friend who is asking you basic questions, because they are basic questions about work, family, about your school, about different things, but very simple topics. So imagine you're asked, where do you live? So your friend asks you, where do you live? You wouldn't start the answer with apparently or overwhelmingly. Do you understand? So you don't have to go that far. For part one, just keep the answer simple and concise. Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Ernest Oloranipa. I want to welcome you once again to my YouTube channel. Please subscribe if you're yet to subscribe, and then watch other videos, amazing videos on public speaking, Ielts, and other interesting topics. Alright, so last week I made a video on Ielts speaking test and how I scored 9.0. Now this is the part 2 of that video where I will share more tips with you on Ielts speaking test. Now the Ielts speaking test is very easy and you can get your desired score at your first attempt. So the first tip for today is a very common one but cannot be overemphasized, which is practice, practice, practice. Now unlike the reading and the listening test where you can just practice by yourself, with the Ielts speaking you should get a partner, either someone who has written the exam before or someone who can listen to you and knows the criteria by which to assess your speaking. Now this is very important because you might think you have everything figured out and you're ready for your speaking test, but until you really speak with someone, you may never know how ready or how prepared you are. So get a partner, and if you don't have a partner who is available to listen to you, then you should record yourself and listen to yourself and compare with the criteria. Now secondly, avoid fillers. Now what are fillers? For different people, there are different fillers. Some people say things like, so those things you say in between phrases or sentences that you are so used to, you have to avoid them while preparing for your Ielts speaking test. Now one good way again to remove and eliminate these fillers is through recording or getting someone to listen to you, because you might not even know you use these fillers often, and these can actually affect the fluency of your conversation, which is one of the criteria for assessing you in the Ielts speaking test. The third one is do not memorize answers. Now this is common for non-native speakers. So if you're a native speaker, it might not be a problem for you. But if you're a non-native speaker, you might try to memorize topics, sentences from past questions on Ielts speaking, but that is a big mistake. You see, the examiners are trained to know when you memorize your answers, and that would definitely drop your band score for the Ielts speaking test. The next point, do not bother about your accent. You see, the Ielts examiners have been trained to know that there are non-native speakers taking the exam. So what you should focus on is your pronunciation, the clarity of your pronunciation. Let the examiner hear exactly what you're saying. Pronounce the words correctly. One great tool that will help you is www.dictionary.com. So on the internet, just type in the word and then you find the microphone icon, click on it, and then you will get the correct pronunciation of the word. So this is one great way to help yourself to pronounce every word correctly. So do not be too concerned about the accent. The next one is do not use unfamiliar words, big and unfamiliar words. So many students make this mistake. In the bid to impress the examiner, they pick complex words which they are not used to, and you could make a mistake in applying this word correctly. So it's preferable for you to use common words but synonyms, so have a wide range. In the previous video I talked about the word game, which you can play to help you learn new words and increase your vocabulary. but do not try to use complex words you do not really understand. In my last video, one of the tips I gave was being cheerful on exam day. How important that is. Now, I'll tell you one reason why that is so important. In your Ielts speaking test, one thing you want to avoid is using monotone. Now, what is monotone? It means you are speaking on just a single tone. For example, my house is located in the southern part of the city. That's monotone. Now look at the way I will say it in a different way. My house is located in the southern part of the city. You see, I'm emphasizing some words, so it makes my communication more interesting and also engages the examiner and also gives you confidence to speak more. So do not use monotone. Don't say this is how I sound. This is my voice. Practice stressing some words more that would actually help you to express yourself better. The next tip is do not rush into your answers. There's nothing wrong in pausing for a few seconds before you answer the question. Now, you can use some nice sentences or phrases like, let me see. So you're asked a question about a zoo, and then you say, oh, let me see. The last zoo I visited was the Mongolian zoo, for example. So you see, the first phrase, let me see, gives you some few seconds to think about your answer. Or you can say things like, oh, that's an interesting question. So while saying that, you are processing what next to say. So you don't have to jump into your answers. You can use these nice sentences to begin if you're not sure of the first thing to say. Finally, for today, let me talk a little bit about part 1, 2, and 3 of the Ielts speaking test. So in the part 3 of this video, I will go into details for each of those parts. And we'll also discuss questions on each of the parts. I will show you how to answer these questions and the mistakes that many people make, which you can avoid for your own speaking test. So in the part 1 of the Ielts speaking test, you are asked more general questions. So it's the question and answer segment with your examiner. Now, one important tip for the part 1 is answer like you're talking to your friend. So you need to know where to use the big words and where to answer very simply. So in part 1, you're talking with your friend who is asking you basic questions, because they are basic questions about work, family, about your school, about different things, but very simple topics. So imagine you're asked, where do you live? You wouldn't start the answer with apparently or overwhelmingly. Do you understand? So you don't have to go that far. For part 1, just keep the answers simple and concise. So imagine your friend asks you, where do you live? Oh, I live in the center of the city, close to the biggest shopping mall. You see, you've given a simple answer. You're using simple sentences. So you don't have to go complex in part 1. And as a rule, to make it easier for you, stick with 3 to 5 sentences. And that's why practice is very important. Because how do you put your ideas into 3 sentences or 5 sentences that actually communicate a range of vocabulary and showcase your fluency, your grammar? So it requires practice. Because sometimes you want to make just one point and then you're saying 5 sentences without even realizing it. So practice helps you to put the information in few sentences but still communicate your exact point. Now the part 2 lasts for 3 minutes. The examiner gives you a paper and a pen to write out your answers for a particular question. So you have 1 minute to think about what you want to write, and then you have 2 minutes to communicate your answer. So there's not been a longer 2 minutes. So you have to practice what you want to say. You have to rehearse, write down your points, and then one good tip in part 2 to keep you talking is to use a story, or you use the PPF technique. So say something in your past, say something in your present, and something in the future, still connected to that question. So in the next video, I will show you different examples and how you can speak for 2 long minutes without interruption. Now the part 3 is for 4 to 5 minutes. So it's a discussion where you are asked further questions from the part 2 connected to your topic, what you spoke about in the second part of the speaking test. Now in this part, you can use bigger words, more complex vocabularies, but of course that are still grammatically correct. And this lasts for 4 to 5 minutes. So in total, the IELTS speaking test lasts for 11 to 14 minutes. So it's a long time, but also very short. If you practice properly and you follow these guidelines I'm giving you, you will come out with your desired score. So the next video, I'm going to go into details and answer questions for each of the parts. So let me know if you have questions or you want me to address any area. Please leave in the comment section and I'll be glad to address them in my next video. So leave a comment below, subscribe, like the video, share with your friends, and please watch other videos on this channel. Thank you and see you next week. God bless you.